Oz's plans be smart and stupid at the same time. Episode 3 of Penguin just dropped, and I gotta say, this show is that girl. So much to talk about, but before we do, you know I gotta hit you with the spoiler warning if you haven't seen it, because I am getting into it. The episode starts with a flashback of Vic before the Riddler's terrorist attack. The first thing that I notice is that Vic is wearing the same clothes that we meet him in episode 1, which takes place about a week after this attack. I feel really bad because the first thing that I wrote in my notes when I saw him in this fit was Vic loves this jacket. And I felt bad when I realized that he's been living on the streets and hasn't had access to any clothes or money. I refuse to take an L on this entire Gotham is set in New Jersey argument. This is Bushwick. Everything about this scene felt so organic, particularly the way that they weaved in Vic's culture and his relationship with his family. Especially Vic's relationship with his father. Vic clearly loves, respects, and idolizes his father. He also sees all of the potential that his father has to do more with his life. Any first or second generation child, particularly the ones of color, can tell you this phenomenon of the families wanting more for you, but also wanting stability for you. And as you get older and you learn what your parents were like before they had you, it gives you this sort of survivor's remorse. And that pressure creates anxiety and this insatiable ambition to do more. You understand that your parents gave up everything so that you can be as successful as you can be. It's understood that that success needs to come from a career that they deem as acceptable. Hard to pursue risky careers like entertainment or anything of that nature because you know what your family did to get you to this country. And we can see even then that pressure to have a stable life and Vic's ambition was at odds. And that's why Vic was so triggered by Oz saying that he had no ambition on the piers in the first episode. Oh my God, this show deserves an Emmy. They did such a good job of capturing the magic of a fun teenage night on the roof and then showing that magic and that innocence go away in an instant with a terrorist attack. Ramsey Felice is just such an incredible actor. We see him go through like 5 emotions within the span of 5 minutes. He's having a great time and then he's terrified. And then we see him panic to try to get his family out of his house, followed by the pain of having to watch his entire family die and the guilt of knowing that he should have been in that house with them. Sophia is a mean girl and I absolutely love it. She understands the effects she has on everyone that she interacts with. She plays into that fear and uncomfortableness. I love the scene when she's in Oz's house and begins to press Vic. He knows that he was lying about being a mechanic when he can't even work a gaslighter. But then she does something very interesting. She lies in front of Vic. When she first walked into the apartment, she calls it tacky, which let's be clear it is. Then immediately tells Oz that it's nice. She does that because she's a mean girl, but also to see how Vic would react. Like everyone that Oz interacts with, she knows that he's lying, but she knows she also needs him. She catches him in a lie so many times. The biggest one being that Oz was in on this plan with Alberto. How could Oz be working with Alberto and not know that the drugs were coming from Arkham? But like she says with her final conversation with Oz, he's just a capo to her, a pawn to help her achieve her goals, especially since her family, particularly Johnny, does not respect her or want her anywhere near the business. They are definitely setting up Scarecrow, and I think it's going to be her therapist. I understand that his name is different, but we all know that Matt Reeves does not care about names. The relationship seems too important for it not to mean something later. I believe that he is her supplier. The fact that the drug is a hallucinogenic that helps with mood, I don't know. I definitely think it's going to turn into fear toxin, or that's going to be a side effect that we find out later. Last episode, it definitely felt like the lines between these two relationships was beginning to blur. They quickly reminded us that Vic is a prisoner. Not only is he being manipulated and groomed to be his sidekick, but he also does not feel like he can leave. Two things can be true at the same exact time. Oz can genuinely care and love Vic, but also be in a position where he's grooming him and holding him against his will. We also have to remember that Oz is a master manipulator. Everyone he interacts with, he's manipulating in in some way, and Vic is no different. Is he closer to Vic than he is with everyone else? Absolutely. But I see him working Vic in ways that I'm like, this is to buy his loyalty. Giving him new clothing, a generous salary, and encouraging him to stand up for himself serve two purposes. One goal is definitely to support and nourish this young boy, but the other is clearly to groom Vic to be exactly what Oz needs him to be. That's why that argument at the end was so incredible. Oz was hurt to see that Vic would consider leaving, but it was also clear that he knew Vic's buttons and was sure to push it to ensure that Vic stayed loyal. Bringing up that ambition again, pulling out that gun, was honestly the exact reaction that Vic was afraid of. Colin Farrell is so freaking good. Couldn't determine whether or not Oz was reacting that way because he was really hurt by Vic's actions, or was he threatening him, right? And I think it was both. This man is complex. You gotta remember, he is a snake, okay? He is slimy, slippery, and people know it. He does such a good job of like convincing you and talking his way out of things. The thing about Oz's manipulations and plans are that they hang on by a thread. It's all contingent on everyone that he's manipulating not doing their due diligence. I didn't think the Maronis would follow him or investigate or at one point talk to the Falcones. All of his relationships are fragile and temporary. That's going to include Vic's, because just like this one with the Falcones, he is holding a lie that's going to destroy them. We hear Calvin's name a lot, and we know that Oz is directly responsible for Calvin's death. And he hasn't even told Vic that he's dead. All of Oz's relationships are kind of on loan. None of them are genuine, and that's why they are doomed to fall apart. I knew that story that Oz told Vic in the last episode was important, and that him moving up from a driver to a capo had to do with betrayal. It's clear he betrayed his original boss, and then he betrayed Sophia to get where he needed to be. His reasoning was ambition. It is clearly going to be very important, particularly with Vic, who I believe is going to betray him in the end. Oh my God, this episode was so good. It did such a great job of painting in the world, fleshing out all of the characters involved. Another well-deserved 5 out of 5 Frankie Flames.